Highlights of this evening's program. The Tokas family of Munirka village, from which has sprung an endless stream of swimming champs. The desolate stretch of land where King George V muses over the memorial to his abbot. The 200-year-old tradition of Ghantewala sweets. And the tongas, which have accompanied both Mughals and Marutis. The toughest challenge, it is said, brings out the best in man. It brought out the best in Kazan Singh Tokas. For the first time since the inaugural Asiad in Delhi in 1951, a swimming medal came India's way, Kazan winning the silver in the 200-meter butterfly at the Seoul 1986 Asian Games. It was inevitable that it should be Kazan Singh who broke his 35-year-old out. He's undoubtedly the finest swimmer India has ever had. Holder of more than half of all the men's national records, best swimmer at the Nationals for the last 9 years, Arjuna Award recipient, winner of a large share of medals that India has won at international meets in this last decade. The roll of honor is formidable. However, all that is not so very surprising when you know the credentials given to Kazan by his birth. For the family he was born into was the clan of the Tokasis of Munirka village, and Kazan's performance is explainable in the light of the sporting history of this family, which is far more astonishing.
Actually, Munirka, one of the luckiest villages in Delhi, because we are absolutely in middle of city. And the background of sports in Munirka village is starting from wrestling, our Baba Ganganath temple. And then laterly we jump in swimming, all my family and my village, because of the nice pond we got in Delhi, in our village. They used that pond filled up by the Jharna water, absolutely clean and nice water. We learned from there, all my village person. And we learned because of, normally we learned that time because of only whenever our swimmers go, whenever our village little boy go in the pond, they not fall like die in the water. So normally parents do just trying to give him a teacher swimming, and after he learned this, he can start himself. But my eldest brother, he starts swimming. He went in a competition and he wins some medal. Laterly, one of coach picked him. One of coach picked me, Mr. Maichan, and we start swimming. And our swimming career start from this pond. My brother win international meet, Indo-Sri Lanka Championship, national champion. One eldest brother, he was a champion in army. One brother, he was international, 2 Asian Games he participated, silver medalist SAF game, national champion. Myself participate 2 Asian Games, Olympic, World Championship, and win silver medal for country, World Police Game. And all this start from there. So this is the luckiest pond for my village. And we decide to put a nice swimming pool in this area. And I think this is the best place to put a swimming pool. But I don't know what the government going to decide. I request the government to put a swimming pool, nice swimming pool in this area. Then our people, our village people can take more advantage in swimming sports and learn from there.
The Tokas tradition of taking to water used to begin in the Jhund or lake that stood near the temple of Baba Ganganath, revered by the Munirka villagers. Here, from the steps leading into the water, from the raised embankment around the lake, or even from the trees growing over the placid surface, the village children would take the plunge into careers that often culminated in the lanes of international swimming meets.
हमारे यहाँ तो एक कंपल्सरी एक काम हो गया था, क्योंकि यहाँ पर जब कोई बच्चा ऐसा होता था कि तालाब तक चला जाएगा तो ये डर रहता था कि वो डूब ना जाए, इसलिए गांव के जो बड़े बुजुर्ग होते थे,
With this big pond nearby, there was always the fear of kids drowning in it. So the older people would teach the children how to swim and not have to worry about them. During my time, almost everyone in the village knew how to swim. But we had no idea about swimming as a sport. If we had, people in earlier generations too could easily have competed, won medals, and risen to great heights.
अभी 2 साल पहले हमने एक कैंप तो चलाया था गांव में मिलकर ही थोड़ा चंदा इकट्ठा करके एक जिम बनाया छोटा सा और जिम बनाने के बाद में जो है बच्चों को छोटे-छोटे कच्चा किया उनको बायोडाटा बनाया.
About 2 years ago, we formed a club in the village, collected chanda and put up a gym. We put together the biodatas of every child here and gave them fitness training. After that, we divided them into groups and coached them in different sports. We have boys in swimming, in boxing, and athletics, and, but for the lack of facilities, could have done even better.
हमारे गांव में एथलेटिक्स में भी लड़के हैं जो अभी चल रहे हैं आगे, लेकिन फैसिलिटीज ना होने की वजह से कुछ दूर जाना पड़ता है, कहीं अपना स्टेडियम दूर है और कुछ कमी की वजह से जो है ना अभी कम है, नहीं तो और बढ़ने की उम्मीद है.
The juggernaut of urban development has rolled over this wellspring of Indian aquatic talent. The establishment nearby of DDA apartment buildings effectively cut off the stream that refreshed the supply of water to this lake. Where there was once a breeding ground for champions, today there is overgrown depression, good for nothing, except to provide materials for the chulas of the village.
ये हमारा तालाब पहले बहुत लंबा तकड़ा और बहुत अच्छा था. बाद में बुलडोजर ने इसको और थोड़ा नीचे कर दिया, जो इसकी पालें थी ऊपर थी उसको नीचा कर दिया है, इससे भी गहरा था, बाद में अटके और जो है ना वैसा हो गया.
This was a beautiful pool. It used to be much deeper till the bulldozers flattened the embankment somewhat. The water used to come directly from the hilly areas around. The water was very clean and we could swim in it peacefully. Then the government took over the land upstream, built the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and then these DDA flats. As a result, the flow of water got cut off and the lake came to this state.
जगह लेने के बाद ये नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी बना दी, वहाँ से पानी रुक गया, उसके बाद में आगे फिर क्वार्टर बना दिए, उससे पानी रुक गया, पानी आने का यहाँ साधन बंद हो गया, तो कुछ बारिश ही कम होने लगी, इस वजह से ये ऐसे कैसे रह गया.
The Tokases have been active in trying to get official help for the construction of a swimming pool in the area. There is considerable justification for such an action to be taken, considering the talent that the village breeds. But the suggestion has always been merely shunted from file to file and nothing has happened.
Actually, mostly people know swimming because of this pond. Now there's no water because the DDA flats is there. So they stop the Jharna water and it's not easy to make a field of water in the pond. But mostly person knows swimming because used to water in the pond. And that's why everyone interested in swimming, because you don't have to go in the learning classes. He can go straight for competition and training classes. So that's why everyone choose this sports, swimming. But now they start boxing also, athletics also. Our some of good player in athletics also, and some of junior boxer also good. Volleyball they playing nicely. But we need some coaches also. Like we have in swimming, I think 10 coaches who was used to a very good swimmer. And now they're giving coaching to our young swimmers, police swimmers, because we mostly in the police. And slowly, I hope our volleyball coach also come, someone go for NIS in volleyball, in boxing and other games. And I hope we improve more, like in sports.
In spite of this, the faith of the people of Munirka in sports as a way to a better life has not diminished. And one still wonders, what is it that makes this village so special? Maybe it's something in the water. Far out in the north of the city, on a vast patch of barren ground, stands a solitary obelisk, pointing resolutely at the sky. Like a stark symbol of the decline of the British, It stands bearing on a plaque a momentous declaration. The words inscribed here hold no meaning for anyone anymore, since no one comes here. The plaque commemorates the announcement by King George V of his coronation in 1911 to his Indian subjects. For this is the spot where the awe-inspiring Delhi Darbar was held. Today that same king, petrified in marble, stands not 100 yards away, gazing forlornly at this symbol of his lost empire. This statue once stood under the canopy in front of India Gate, gazing down Kingsway at the Viceroy's residence, now the Rashtrapati Bhavan. A park has been created for the king's statue to reside in. Round about him on other red sandstone pedestals grouped some of his viceroys and governor-generals. These statues have been relocated from various prominent positions in the city. This park had been planned as a memorial to the Raj, but successive governments have neglected the issue. Today the park is overgrown with wild grass and many of the pedestals stand unoccupied. Even then, there is a curious feeling about the place, a message of the mortality of men and monarchies. There is the constant reminder that all things must pass. It's quite astonishing, if you look at it that way, to realize that Ghantewala sweets is as old as democracy, so to say. A year after the French celebrated the bicentennial of their revolution, this renowned Chandni Chowk sweet shop is celebrating its 200th year in existence. Cuisine is one field in which the techniques of tradition are generally still in force. Making sweets is no exception. The way the barfi was made in 1790 is much the same as the way barfi is made in 1990. The kitchen, where the creation of these preparations takes place, looks its age. 2 centuries of wood and coal burning has turned the floor, the walls, the ceilings black and sooty.
में लाला सुखलाल जैन जिन्होंने इस घंटे वाली दुकान की परंपरा शुरू करी थी जयपुर से दिल्ली अपने कामकाज के सिलसिले में यहाँ पर आए.
In 1790, Lala Sukhlal Jain came to Delhi from Jaipur and decided to open a small shop here to sell kalakand. Gradually, as sales grew, the shop expanded. And today, in 1990, you can see what it has become. When Lala Sukhlal first came here, there wasn't such a large variety of things to eat. The shop, too, was suited to its limited requirements. As the interest of people in eating new things developed, we made more items, and the shop also became bigger.
जैसे जैसे लोगों का रुचि खाने की तरफ बढ़ती गई, उसी तरह से जो मिठाइयाँ थी उनका आइटम वगैरह हमने बढ़ाते चले गए। उसके लिए एक बड़ी जगह की रिक्वायरमेंट समय हुई, उसके लिए हमने ये फिर इतना बड़ा दुकान इसको मेंटेन करा और ये आज जो है बिका।
Today, the descendants of the original Ghantewala preserve a sweet tradition against all the pressures of the modern world. The array of delicacies in the counters make one saying, slightly amended, feel very apt. From Ghantewala, departing is such sweet sorrow. The horse, one sociologist has written, is the only animal man has consistently trusted to be the bearer of his body. No one rides horses to go places anymore, but they do still ride tongas. Even the tonga, in its generic form, the horse-drawn carriage, is a centuries-old mode of transport. They were once, like the Maruthis today, status symbols, and a nobleman's carriage reflected his position in society. But with the coming of the internal combustion engine and the automobile, which developed horsepower without using horses, the incidence of unmechanized transport went on the wane. Today, it's only the highest and lowest echelons of society that still use carriages. At the top, the president and other dignitaries are seen on ceremonial occasions, in regal carriages with frills and fancy ornamentation. At the other end, the tonga is a cheap and commonplace vehicle for those with no other means of transport. Notwithstanding its enduring property, the tonga no longer allows its owner a respectable life. Keeping a tonga means a lot of money, and that's not quite what it earns. The main expenditure, of course, is the horse. It's a rough life today, with traffic and inflation being what it is, for these keepers of an old legacy. But come what may, they feel, as one of them put it, that as long as there is Delhi, there will be tongas. Next week's highlights. Next week, feel the essence of Delhi's Little Calcutta in the origin of its rituals. Read What No One Knows with a Man and His Parrot, and revel in the smiles of a people in exile. Highlights of this evening's program. The idol makers of Chittaranjan Park, where the Durga Puja runs through the year. Kailash Rao, the man who tells everyone's future but his own. And the Tibetan Bazaar, the symbol of the will of a refugee people. Chittaranjan Park, Delhi's little Calcutta, where the Bengali comes into his own. What better symbol of this culture than the Durga Puja? The puja comes and goes, and with it come and go the lavishly ornate idols. But where do they come from? would you believe it, this ramshackle hut. No one would give it a second look, except that there are sometimes some strange sights in its courtyard. It's not just the Durga Murtis that are made here. The craftsmen who live here with their creations also make idols for various other minor pujas, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali. This strange, larger-than-life doll combines the body of a statue of a local councillor with a leftover head from the previous 26th of January railways float. The horse is from an earlier job for the Steel Authority of India Limited. Inside the hut, the atmosphere is almost surreal. The space is dominated by Durga Murtis in various stages of completion. This is the bulk of the work, and much of it is done in advance. On some, the details on the faces of the goddess and her mount have already been etched. Only the painting and the ornamentation remains. But it's a long and sometimes tedious process that brings the idols to this state. Mihir Kumar Baidya, one of the artisans here, explains.
প্রথমে কাঠ দিয়ে স্ট্রাকচার করা হয় আর কি কাঠ দিয়ে স্ট্রাকচার করে ওর মধ্যে বাঁশের মানে সাপোর্ট রাখার জন্য বাঁশ পোতা হয় বিভিন্ন কোয়ালিটি করে আর কি
To begin with, we make a fundamental structure out of wood. We place a bamboo pole in this to act as support. This is all done according to the design given. Then we take the drawing. Some people use drawings. Some do it through instinct, fostered by experience. According to the drawing, straw is tied on to create the basic figure.
খড় বেঁধে ওর উপরে আলগা মাটি প্রথমে লেপে নেওয়া হয়
Loose mud is then plastered onto the created forms. Then we make firm mud out of clay and plaster it on. This is really to give a hardened form to the idol, which is now taking shape.
খড়ের উপরে ওই মাটিটা দিয়ে ঢাঁচাটা করে নেওয়া হয় উপরন্ত শক্ত হওয়ার জন্য ওই মাটিটা দেওয়া হয়
By now, the piece has begun to resemble the murti, at least in its general form. Now it's a matter of finishing it. The idols are sanded, polished, and varnished next. This makes them easier to paint upon. The painting and ornamentation requires a great deal of skill and precision. Much of the skills of these craftsmen come from training. The training itself can come in various ways.
বিভিন্ন ধরনের আছে আর কি শিখতে গেলে বিভিন্ন ভাবে শেখে যেমন আর্ট স্কুলও আছে বা কেউ প্রাইভেট আর্টিস্ট দিয়ে শেখে
People learn this art in many different ways. There are art schools where you can learn. Some people learn through private means, some from work experience, others by watching professionals. I, for one, have learned from an art school. There are three main schools in Calcutta: the Indian Art College, the ITI, which runs a course, and the Government Art College.
ITIও পেন্টিং ফেন্টিং সমস্ত কিছু শেখা হয় তারপরে গভর্নমেন্ট আর্ট কলেজ একটা আছে বিভিন্ন আর্ট কলেজ স্কুল এই ধরনের আছে এর থেকেও শেখে আবার কেউ এই সব দেখে কাজকর্ম করে করেও শেখে।
I learnt first from school and then from the experience I've gathered while working. This too is a form of learning.
এও একটা শেখা বলতে পারেন।
The experience of these craftsmen have taught them many things, including some useful shortcuts. One of these is the use of intricately carved plaster of Paris dies for idols which are commonly made. Looking at these clumsy, headless figures, it seems strange that they will soon be worshipped. However, it is gratifying to think that maybe in some way worship is but a tribute to the labor and skill of these craftsmen. As he walks the streets of Delhi, Kailash Rao is a most nondescript man. The only thing that gives away what he is the parrot's cage that he carries about with him. Kailash Rao, the cage announces, tells fortunes. Choosing a reasonably spreading tree, Kailash Rao sets up shop. All his wares are carried in his one little jhola and his parrot cage. Placing his rug on the ground, he systematically arranges the symbols of his trade all about himself. Then he settles himself down and awaits customers. Kailash Rao uses various methods to tell fortunes. Usually the mode chosen depends on the client. Sometimes, though, he might use some method on his own to reinforce his readings. Where has he learnt all this from, one wonders?
हम एमपी मध्य प्रदेश खंडवा के रहने वाले हैं।
I belong to Khandwa in Madhya Pradesh. Being pundits and fortune tellers is the family occupation. And though we've read palms and practiced astrology for generations, it is only for the last 10 to 12 years that I've worked with a parrot. The first gurus are the parents. After that, you make your own gurus. Without a guru, you can't learn. This has been our only work. We own no land or business otherwise. The obvious paradoxes in reading people's fortunes are not his to consider. His is a vocation like anyone else's. He has learnt what he has learnt and never thought to question its rationality. Rationality, in fact, is not his domain. He deals in more abstract concepts like fate and death.
जैसे सर पढ़ने का क्या सवाल है तो गुरु मैंने बतला ही दिया गुरु बिन ज्ञान नहीं है गिरे बिन हार नहीं भेद बिन चोरी नहीं काल बिन मौत नहीं तो ऐसा है पंडित किसी का तकदीर तो नहीं बदलता है अगर तकदीर बदल देता तो खुद अपना बदल के बैठ जाता
There's no point in learning by itself. Without a guru, it's useless. A pandit can't change anyone's destiny. If he could, he'd just change his own. Fate is written about in the scriptures, and it just has to be read. It's all written in the lines of the palms. You can't predict matters of birth and death. Those are in the hands of God. No one can foretell death. Neither can anyone avert it.
बाकी उनका फल जो है ऐसा है, आजकल तो ये ज्योतिष शास्त्र की किताब इतनी निकली है कि पूछो मत। बाकी जो पुरानी चीजें थी वो तो नहीं रहती। आजकल तो डुप्लीकेट।
People like me learn from the Shastras and then read a man's personality and destiny from their faces or their palms. But people are skeptical about these things nowadays, so we lay all our learning out for them to see. Fate and the vagaries of life and death are revealed to him through a number of means. His trained parrot and printed cards are one of these.
लिखा है, देखो पूर्ण सिंह भाई, आपका राशि कन्या है। स्वामी आपका बुद्ध है, राशि का मालिक, बुद्धि का मालिक। वैसे जीवन में आप खुद अपना काम करना चाहते, गुलामी नहीं। वैसे आप जीवन में ये चाहते हो कि आप भविष्य के अनुसार माने अपना धंधा, अपना कारोबार, अपना बिजनेस करना, मगर वक्त के अनुसार भी पैसा नहीं है। मगर अभी समय है, धीरज से काम करें। माने कहते हैं देर है अंधेर नहीं है, टाइम लगेगा थोड़ा, मगर आपके जीवन के अंदर अपना कार्य करोगे।
It's not surprising that Kailash Rao can still make a living for himself, telling fortunes. At heart, India still has immense faith in its traditional beliefs. So, Kailash Rao can still tell anyone his or her fortune. Well, not quite anyone. There is one person, he admits, whose future he is unable to see.
खुद अपने आप तो देखो, कहते हैं ना कि वकील की वकालत खुद नहीं कर सका।
A lawyer can't fight his own case. A barber cut his own hair. So, how can I foresee about myself? In some places, the wide expanse of the Yamuna looks more like the green belt than like a river. Across one of these stretches, a new bridge is being built. One section is already operational. As this bridge sweeps around on the western bank, it meets up with the ring road heading north. Before it does so, there is a gateway, which is little more than a gap in the wall. Through here, life ceases to be Indian and becomes instead Tibetan. Most of these faces here have distinctly Oriental features, and most of them are highly expressive. The Tibetan refugees have set up a bazaar here. It has been around for quite a while now.
ऐसे है जी, हमारे मार्केट जो है आज से बरसों 20 साल से पहले यहाँ पे लगा हुआ है। वैसे
This market has been in existence for about 20 years now, though official sanction was granted by the MCD only in the early 80s. We had appealed to them saying we were refugees, and if we were to remain here, we would have to think about our livelihood. We used to put up shops as hawkers on the pavement. The government agreed to rehabilitate 58 families in this market. Now it's the profits from these shops that help us to run our lives and take care of our families. Also from our profits, we give what we can to the Tibetan struggle.
यहाँ पे दुआ लगाते हैं और इसी का जो है मतलब जो है चाहे प्रॉफिट हो जो भी हो, हमारे लिवलीहुड चलते हैं और हमारे बाल बच्चे जो है पलने उसमें चलते हैं और हमारी जो टिबेटन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल के बारे में जो हम संघर्ष करते हैं, तो उसके बारे में जो हमारे तरफ से चाहे जितना दान की थोड़ा योग दे सकते हैं, हम वो भी जरूर इसी मार्केट थ्रू हम देते हैं.
On entering the bazaar, the main feature of the market is immediately evident. There are rows upon rows of stalls selling clothes, clothes and more clothes. Many of them have famous foreign labels and markings, but not all of them come from abroad.
मार्केट की जो आइटम जो है अब यहाँ ज़्यादातर रेडीमेड की होते हैं, तो हमारे मार्केट में रेडीमेड की जो ज़्यादा यहाँ बेचते हैं, एक ज़माना ऐसी था कि
Most
थोड़ा
of the
बहुत
items here are ready-made.
imported ज़रूर होते थे।
There was a time when we used to sell imported stuff.
टाइप की होते थे कि जो नेपाल जो हमारे भाई बहन आते हैं और कोई वहाँ पे अपने भाई बहन मिलने के लिए जाते हैं, तो कोई ऐसे आइटम्स लेके आते हैं, तो वो अपनी मतलब जो है एक्सपेंडिचर के लिए वो लेके आते हैं, तो वो यहाँ पे जो है बेचते हैं, तो हम लेते हैं। और दूसरा
This would come from Nepal and from Southeast Asia. A large number of Indians traveled to those countries, and they used to come back with items which we could sell over here. But now I can say with some amount of certainty that almost everything that you get in this market is totally Indian.
अब इस वक्त ऐसी है कि ज़्यादातर जो है आप जो है हमारे अंदर जो यहाँ मार्केट में बेचते हैं, वो ये होसरी सारा जो है, मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि इंडियन की है।
Clothes aren't, however, the only commodity here. Sports shoes, again sporting foreign markings, wait for the right feet to try them on. Shoelaces, like fluorescent worms, add more colour to the already colourful stalls. Here and there, imported cosmetics enhance the foreign scent of the place. There's a lot of stuff here for the taking, and a lot of takers. Many of them, strangely enough, are foreigners. Close to the bazaar is a Bodh Vihar. Run by lamas, this is both a place of worship and a traveller's rest. The architecture and the decor of the Vihar brings one fact across strongly. The Tibetans may be strangers in a strange land, but Tibet is always with them.